Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest, some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm I'm here. I'm okay. How are you? We had a week off.
We
How
had a
are
week
you?
off. We had a
Yeah,
week
tell
off.
me tell me about your week off.
Well, I mean, I spent some of the time, you know, in El Salvador, they have, these prisons. So I was, how Tom in Succession was going through the prisons to see which one he wanted to be in. I was doing the
Oh
same
yeah,
thing
yeah, yeah.
with that. Yeah. Just in case, we
Yeah.
get sent there. I want to make sure we put in for a good one. We need to pull our strings to get
Okay.
there.
All
Yeah.
right.
No, I had a nice time. I was in Berlin, as you know, and I saw Zarina, as you know, which was great. It was wonderful to see
Nice.
her, and we did a little
Yeah.
impromptu broadcast from the street, which was, and she was just like right in it, like out of this, like I'm kind of like a little shy about it. She's like, I don't fucking care, you know. She's like, there's no bombs going off around me.
Yeah,
This is
I mean
great.
it's
So,
better than war reporting, maybe
right.
for a
Uh,
little
it
break.
was, so it was great to see her, albeit, I mean, it's such a strange time in the world,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
I was very curious going to Europe what reception I would get being,
Oh yeah.
an
How was that?
American. And it was actually much better than I thought because, I mean, people that I see there now, I've been going to this thing a long time. They're my friends and from a lot of different countries in Europe. And, especially in Poland, the Poles, they know, they're like, what's going on? We're so sorry. And,
Mm,
everybody also is kind of afraid and like, what the fuck is going on? All of
yeah.
that. But everybody is sympathetic, at least to me. I mean,
That's
knowing that, where I'm at, but, it's a strange time. And all the countries in Europe, everybody is affected. I was in Berlin when the Nazi party, or the neo-Nazi party, it's not really but the far right group joined forces with the Christian Democrat Party, which my German friend was telling me in the cab, explaining the situation to me and saying, well, it's never going to happen that they're going to actually unite with the Nazi, with these party. And I think as he was saying that, it was happening. So that's how, it's weird for them too. And then there was a big
yeah.
protest in Berlin, which Zarina, who happened to be in Berlin when I was there, just also went to that protest. She was at protests in Tbilisi and Georgia and all that. So, but the good news is that, the German people don't want this. That was enough to get a lot of people in the street, which is,
They were in
encouraging.
the street about Alon as well, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
yeah,
he beamed in there and did his thing that he
yeah.
does because he's a fucking Nazi. Elon is a Nazi. Kanye West apparently is a Nazi. If we go by what
Yeah,
he says,
we go by what they say about themselves or the salutes that they want to
right?
offer. Yeah.
Salute, kind of the underlying things. But how are you feeling? How was your week off?
Well, my week off was me curled up in a ball, when I got the norovirus. I've never had a norovirus. I've certainly had food poisoning in my life. I've had a stomach flu before, but this is I truly have no words to describe this. The whole house came down with it. Um, some of us ended up in the hospital. Others of us just, you know, tried to tough it out and did. But I got on the other side of it, and so I'm just sort of a general fatigue. I am tired. I got back to, doing my workouts and doing my thing that I do. Um, and we're getting slammed with some what a winter we're having up here. And so it goes from days of glory, like the most I talk to you and I'm like, it's so beautiful where I live. It's just I can't that's another thing that's hard to come up with words for it. It's glittering snow and bright blue sky and crisp clean air and everybody's out in everything all the time because this is where everybody's outside doing things all year round. So it's a very active unit. It's not like, but today, big blizzard coming through. So, it's
A
that.
lot of snow
That's
coming.
it. That's a lot of rambling about, being sick and having snow.
So
Yeah.
so this virus, like, I think you would give it a very low review. Like the Yelp review is like one.
I would the Yelp review, this is, COVID went longer for me and was
Mhm.
certainly ended up being more damaging, changed my voice. It was rough, but I don't remember feeling like this. There is a point where and even the doctor's like, yeah, you're going to want to choose death and you need to just know you're going to get through it. So there's a point where it's so painful and so awful that you're just like going, death
Wow,
might be
that sounds like fun. Sounds great.
yeah. So,
Um,
and then I start to come to, and it's a shit show out there. So that doesn't make you. There's nothing around to make me feel any better except for the pretty sky and the mountain and the snow. So, which is nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad everyone in your house is
So,
feeling better.
yeah.
I hope that this plague passes by my house.
I hope so too.
I
I
hope it
really
passes
do.
by.
Yeah. I hope it goes away forever for everybody. Really.
It should,
Yeah.
yeah. That would
It
be
should.
nice. All right, should we begin?
Let's dive in. I'm putting on the timer.
All
I
right,
think I'm
so
going first, right? And
yeah,
let
so
me.
I'll set it up for you because
Thank you.
we were talking about earlier today just about this whole Elon Musk and the Peter Thiel boys taking over our treasury or whatever, and which by the way has worked out great because I don't know if you know, Doge has now saved the U.S. taxpayer $48 billion, which is apparently enough to buy 3 cartons of eggs. So they're doing a wonderful job. It's really good stuff. No, but you had a good frame for this because they're going in there, like Elon Musk said, we're going to put this through the wood chipper, he said,
Yeah.
which is my son's coming. We're going to watch Fargo tomorrow. But that's what comes to mind. But you
Yeah.
had a good kind of questions to ask and a way to frame this kind of thing, especially as it regards money.
Yeah. I mean, not just specific to Musk and Thiel's little young men and teenage boys, but just in general, this moment of total destruction of
Yeah.
our federal government, and why people aren't bothered by that, or disturbed or even cheering it on, and not just because they're, these goobers, these avatar goobers are in there for them, these, thinking not just because people are Musk fans or Trumpers, but they're literally like think that this is, this sort of libertarian wet dream of burn it all to the ground. And it's interesting. I talked a little bit. I was on Sherry Jacoba's podcast, and we talked a little bit about this as well. And I was just, it started to occur to me that I don't want to hear about, and I don't think it's productive, and I don't think it's going to do anything and bring any positive result for anyone, or it being that we want to stop this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to stop anything to just go with this sort of like, well, the Dems just have to be better Democrats and we just have to let people know what we stand for. And it's like, no, there's no parties anymore. It's that whole thing is done. It's done. We got to the end of the road of that. So what people are really missing, in my opinion, what the American body is missing is just a real simple conversation about what the federal government is like. How did it come into being? What does it mean to be a democracy? Language like that and storytelling, simple step 1, step 2, and asking people questions about, well, what would you rather have? And how would that work? That is going to get us to at least get a lot of people on a common ground and a sort of same page to turn and sort of say, okay, let's see what we can now do. So how that goes, I think it starts with things like, okay, why do we have these big things? This big federal government, just start talking about that. Well, yep, we had a monarchy, and that really just meant that there was this guy, and he was completely above any and all laws, and he owned us. We were his property. Our land was his property, or everything belonged to him. and he could just come in and do whatever he wanted to our lives, right? If you were his subject, he could do anything he wanted to your life, and you had zero recourse. There was nowhere you could go, nothing you could turn to if he wanted to come and take your property, take your thing, you could work your whole life, and he could just come take all of your stuff. You could have Social Security you're waiting for, and he could just go in and take it all and shove it in his pockets, and and nobody wanted that. People decided, yeah, that's not what I want. That's not the life I want. I want a life where we throw that fucker off. So then that was like, well, what are we going to do? And it's, well, if you're going to throw off a monarch or an oligarch, you need to then learn how to govern yourself. You can choose that system of government. Okay, let's figure out how to govern ourselves. Well, what does that mean to govern yourselves? Well, we're going to have agreed upon rules. Like, just think you're all in a big house together all of a sudden with a bunch of people. You got neighbors. Well, let's have some fucking rules. Like that's my tuna fish salad in the refrigerator. I want it to last. Just everybody people have had jobs, or they go to a job. You've got rules even in the workplace. There's some stuff you can't do. You can't just go and hit your coworker because they frustrate you. You can't just molest another one, right? Like we know that. Like, there's just, so that we can have a productive experience here as a society, let's have some rules. And those are our laws. That became the Constitution. Okay, that makes sense, right, everybody? Everybody? Does that make sense? Great. All right. And then we're like, all right, well, we got to do shit too. So you need rules, but we also, who's going to enforce the rules? And how are you going to pay those people? Okay. And how do we have a system where, like, we don't want just thugs? So we'll have to have a judiciary system. We have to have a court system. So these things are all born. Everything we have in the federal government was born out of this need to just have a civil society. So you could kind of go to the rest of the world, leave me the fuck alone. I'm going to go live the life I want to go live. I'm going to do my best. All this talk of meritocracy coming from, the Trumpers now, we need meritocracy to get rid of everything. And that's like, well, that was our federal government.
Yeah.
Literally, that's the society we had. So we built this thing. It took a couple 100 years. Of course it gets bigger. The nation got bigger. There's functions and things, and stuff was working and stuff was not working. But it's going to grow. And how does it grow? It grows. You can't just hire people and not pay them. It grows from our tax dollars. This is what we agree to pay our tax into. We're paying money into that so that this federal government that works for us can work, right? It can work. It's who's going to pay for this shit, right? That it came down to that. And how are we going to pay for it? If there's not a king coming, like, well, we're going to have to pay some tax. We don't want to give all of our money to this dude, right? We're going to give it to this body that we're going to create, and the people are going to be employed, and they're going to work for us. This whole thing is going to work out. That's it, guys. That's it. Are you on the page of that? Or are you on the page of, no, I just want some dude and his 19-year-old, intern who calls himself Big Balls, right? And the other guy that says I'm a eugenicist, right? And the Nazis, and these, all of them, only dudes that Peter Thiel cultivates to go in and actually put their hands in their bullshit and their stupid fucked up code, and they're plugging in their servers, right, that they grew up playing Fortnite on, and the only grooves in their brain came from 4chan and Fortnite. It has to have a 4 in front of it, vocabulary, like, and then that's formed otherwise it's smooth brained except for those grooves, right? And plugging their server in and stealing all our fucking money, stealing all our data, all that shit I just described. What? It's just a handful of fucktards go in there and fucking take it. That's what we want now? Really? No. Nobody wants that. But you got to explain the other thing. I don't want to hear about Dems and platforms and what. I don't give a fuck. I want people to start explaining shit that way. Speak dumb. I'm not saying that everybody's dumb. Our brains are overloaded with stuff. It's
Yeah.
crazy out there. There's so much noise. People's attention spans, and most people, they've lost track of that. They've lost track of what the federal government means in their lives and what happens if we're going to get rid of it all. Okay, well then what the fuck am I paying for? What
Yeah.
am I paying for? Why do you need to take any of my tax dollars at all? If all this shit is going to be broken or thrown in the trash or burned or damaged or fucked up in some way because of big balls, what am I paying for? Why do you need my money? And who are you? Are you a king? What the fuck is this? So just to start talking like that, and when they come with big agenda items like, and now we're going to go build Gaza. Okay, well, who the fuck is paying for that? I'm not paying for that. Who's paying for that? That's not cheap.
No.
Right? So we could talk about the horrors of it all. And of course, there's human rights and it's horror. And that's where it should be the stuff that gets us out on the streets. It's human rights violations. I've been saying this for a while. But couple that, and that needs to be coupled with what's the bill? What's the bill? And you know what? No, I don't want to pay for that. Fuck you. You're so fucking rich, you pay for it. Big balls. And his popcorn company. That kid, I think that's the kid. I've got some, people been, I'm not doxing anybody. Parents live in Danbury, Connecticut. They have a great big popcorn company. These people should be made very uncomfortable.
Danbury.
They did a shit job raising their
kids.
kid.
Trader Joe's at Danbury, just, maybe not be nice to them, even though that goes against the Trader Joe's mantra.
Whatever. All right, that's my thing. This is how I want it. This is what I want to hear from people. I want to hear explanations, basic shit, and I want the question to be like, okay, just keep hammering the American people with, we need to know what it's going to cost. They need to show us what it's going to cost.
And who's going to pay?
And where do they think they're going to get the money?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And why do we want this when we could have, enough people at the, in aviation so that planes don't crash into helicopters or helicopters don't fly into the back of a plane? I'd rather have my money go for that. Hiring people for safety. So when I step on an airplane, I'm not terrified, any more terrified than I already am. That's where I want my money to go. And if it's not going to go there, I don't want to give it to you. I'm not giving it to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He doesn't need it.
He does not. He does not. Here. Elon Musk is not a king, by the way. Elon Musk is a doge, which is the name of the person that ruled Venice in the late Middle Ages, right? The Doge of Venice is the one who ordered the sack of Constantinople in 1204 during the Fourth Crusade. And he was blind, of course, because it's the blind leading the whatever. Anyway, I agree. And these people have gone from, because they were PayPal and now they're PayPal. That's where we're at now. That's where we're at. All right.
So stupid.
dumb.
What's your phrase? Greg
stupid times calls for stupid measures.
Stupid times call for stupid measures, everybody.
All right. We don't want to keep our guests waiting too long. So let's do 5 minutes on this. I'm going to bang through this next thing. I'm going to bang through this next thing.
Okay.
All right. We're ready?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So the other thing is I'm thinking about, who's going to pay for this is the one question. The other question is, do we want China to win? That's the question to ask anybody. Do we want China to win? Because if you were to put somebody in place in the United States government in charge of everything and say, hey, make it so that China wins, what they would do looks very similar to what Donald and Elon are doing right the fuck down. Okay. I know people don't know what US aid is, but crippling US aid and destroying it, or we're going to just freeze for 90. If you freeze it for 90 days, all of the programs go bye-bye and it's fucked. What USAID does is it establishes the United States as a force around the world for democracy, for humanitarian causes, for disease prevention, all of this really good stuff that we do in countries all over the world. Now we're not going to do it. What's going to happen to those countries? A, China and Russia are going to go in. B, even when we try later on to try to resurrect this stuff, they're not going to trust us ever again. Victory, China. Good job, Donald. The tariffs. I don't know what the fuck. We were talking. I don't know where we're at with these tariffs. I don't know if they're going to happen or not. Tariffs, as you pointed out last week, the week before, whenever, they lead to depressions, economic depression. So what's that going to do? It's going to crash the U.S. economy. And then, the yuan, the Chinese currency is going to be the global reserve currency. That'll fuck us too. Great job, Donald. Just what China wants. So, what are we doing? And this whole CIA thing, they emailed the names in this. It was basically a Hotmail account. It may
Big balls. Big balls at work.
Yeah. Let's email all of these 2,000 new recruits that we have for the last 2 years that are specializing in China stuff, so you can identify them.
It's literally the plot of the first Mission Impossible and many, many other movies of like, the one thing that can't get out is the list of names. We'll go to great extreme lengths to make sure that list of names is not out in the open. There it goes.
So Trump and Musk, they're into China shit, they're into Putin shit. Like, we've been talking about the Russia stuff for fucking 10 years now.
Yeah.
Whatever. 9, whatever it is. Like, it's pretty fucking obvious. The CIA thing, it proves it. Like, why would you do that? Why would you insist that go over non-secure lines unless you just wanted it to go right to the Chinese and the Russians and every fucking buddy else? Is it fucking traitor, and that's it. And the question to ask anybody on the fence or the MAGA, whoever, is, do you want China to win? Because every single thing that these people are doing is helping them and hurting us. Every single thing. Okay.
I love it. I don't know that I want to ask folks at the other side anything. I just want to say that China's winning. China's winning.
Fine. China's winning.
Declarative China, again, into the dumb speak, this is perfect, right? China's winning.
Yeah. China's
They're winning.
And Trump is helping China win.
And Trump is helping it, making sure.
Because of this whole thing. And Russia, but Russia really is just Putin is underneath really.
Yeah.
So it's all goes into this thing. And Musk plays both sides.
These big balls, 19-year-old popcorn heir.
I didn't know he was a popcorn guy.
Popcorn.
Yeah. You know what? My roommate in college, his family owned a potato chip company, which is very nice. It was a very nice thing.
Oh my gosh, that is fun for college.
It was good. So I feel we're good. We're good. We're moving on.
Right? You're even a minute early. You outshone me.
Okay. Well, we got it. We don't want to keep our guest waiting. But,
no, let's not keep her waiting.
Again, what did I say before? Stupid times call for stupid measures.
Fuck, what the fuck? Fuck these fucking fucks. America, fuck this fucking sucks. Fuck, what the fuck? Fuck these fucking fucks. America, fuck these fucking sucks. 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 America, fuck this fucking sucks. Fuck these fucking fucks. America, fuck this fucking sucks.
I don't know. It's how I was feeling,
I love it. I love it so much. You were like, I didn't get a chance. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen it yet. What Chuck had done with that? He's like, just wait for the show. Wait and see it live. Oh,
Chuck did a great job as always.
Great job, Chuck.
For my sort of out of tune warbling, it was good.
No, it's perfect. No.
It doesn't deserve to be in tune. Okay, look, it's gonna be in everybody's head now.
It's gonna be in our heads.
I'm so sorry. Our guest, who everyone knows, is an award-winning journalist turned organizer, the executive director of Equality Florida, and the host of Wide Awake America. Nadine Smith, welcome back.
Yay.
You've muted yourself. You muted
Oh,
yourself.
you muted. You mute.
I don't know how to follow that song, that earworm that we're all going to be muttering under our breath. When my son was a baby, I could just imagine me rocking him to sleep to that tune.
It was a little bit of a lullaby quality, I think.
did.
I liked how gentle the voice was in it, Greg. Yeah, it's good vocal for sure.
It took me a while to figure out how to do it, like what the other things should be, and it turned out that the fewer words that weren't fuck was what I was going for. So we wanted it to be as many fucks as possible.
Yes.
And I think I've achieved maximum fuck.
Maximum fucks.
Yeah, which is good because I had no more fucks.
You are not. You had no more fucks to give.
Yeah, I had none. I had none left.
Yeah.
Nadine, how are you? How's it going?
You know what? I'm doing surprisingly well considering the circumstances, considering the news. I'm doing surprisingly well. Today, unlike previous visits, I'm actually drinking real liquor. So
nice.
That might be helping out the situation.
Salud.
That's nice.
So before we get into the topic at hand, I'm curious, just what's going on in Florida? What's it like down there?
Yeah.
And just give us a little rundown on what's happening.
Well, I I think the most important message from Florida is we have been in the thick of everything that people are dealing with right now. 30 years of control by the Republicans and a supermajority control. And so we've been dealing with the outrageous culture wars, the destruction of institutions, but we've also been figuring out how to throw sand in the gears. And I think the message from Florida is concede nothing. Meet them and on every single piece of ground, and you will end up discovering unexpected allies. And I think we're beginning to see that in different ways around the country. But, you are fond of quoting Andor, and I think that is well worth. I find myself reading it to people all the time, especially the part that talks about how unnatural tyranny is.
Yeah.
And how freedom occurs spontaneously without instruction.
Yes.
And so that part of the American psyche is still here. And to your point, Stephanie, I think making things really legible to people so they can understand without no degrees necessary.
No degrees necessary.
Yeah.
I love that.
And we're about to talk about this around media, but it's sort of like this is the moment simply to say bullshit. That's not what that is, and then tell the truth instead of treating every utterance that they vomit forth as though it deserves the weight of studied consideration. And it's one of the things that Steve Bannon has talked about a fundamental flaw in the way American journalism has developed and weakened, that they cannot handle the flood. And so Flood the Zone has been their shock and awe. All of this is intended to create in us a sense that we can't keep up with things crumbling beneath us rather than keeping our eye on the arsonist, not every little fire.
That's a good way to say it. I like that. One of your Florida arsonists is go ahead, Steph.
I just want to say, I felt my nervous system got a little adjusted there, right there from that. It doesn't deserve the weight of any kind of consideration. Nothing serious. No. What's coming out of their, and even project that's very different than take it seriously. It's happening. They mean what they say. They're going to do this, but don't letting these people define who and what this nation was, especially maybe what it's going to be if they don't get stopped, but they don't get to talk about in my mind what US aid is. So it's like this is garbage coming from you. You're hitting people intentionally. And now this is, for me, a lot of what comes out of the elected officials that are in the MAGA land, the entire Republican Party, and the distractions from the idiot distractions that we're getting from sort of hapless and hopeless. They can't find their way around Dems. That just, I feel like there are in just a handful. I want to focus on the Republicans, but the Democrats just not being able to figure out how anything functions outside of the Capitol Hill that they are so committed to having themselves be put into.
Well, that is part of the weakness here, because you have to understand what they're doing. And they have as their guidebook, not just Project 2025, but this book called the Butterfly Revolution, right? And it has 7 steps. And the 7 steps are: 1, campaign on autocracy. So when Trump says, people say I'll be a dictator, I tell them only from day one, because it is about desensitizing us to that. The next is purge the bureaucracy. That's what all of this DOGE is. And we shouldn't talk about that like it's a legitimate entity authorized to do the things it's doing. It's a lawless, Elon Musk and his band of bros. And, and what they are doing, we should call it out and stop acting like it's a department that deserves some respect. They plan to ignore the courts. They cite Andrew Jackson. Nice ruling you got there. Good luck enforcing it, because so much of this is dependent on just respecting guide rails and comedy of some sort. And then co-opting Congress is part of it. Centralizing police forces. We've seen that in Florida with the governor gathering police forces under his purview, and shut down media, shut down universities. We're seeing that as well. And finally, mobilize stochastic violence. That is their 7-step plan. And if you understand that it is in service both to an ideological extreme, but mostly it's in service to this right-wing techno dystopian future in which they see themselves as, as the worthy to survive, and that they are beginning now to plunder the resources for that structure. And that is why it feels like a weird cognitive dissonance to listen to Democrats, talking as though the normal rules are in force, or to approach it as though we are in ordinary times. And the media is the least equipped to deal with that.
I want to talk. I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit. Greg, you were talking, Greg and I were talking beforehand, and you were saying, like, it can't just be these, by the time there's lawsuits happening and the lawfare is going to go on. But by the time there's any resolution for any of that, it is too late. We've already lived through that in a very real way. It's what got us into this moment. But I don't know that there's going to be criminal lawsuits that are going to, who's going to enforce, who, Pam Bondi? There's nothing. It doesn't matter how much criminality. The criminality is rampant now because it has been determined that the president is above the law, and he's completely seized the Justice Department, purging all those prosecutors, purging all of the stuff that they're doing. Very reminiscent of Turkey, by the way, with an attack on the justice system with that coup, with Erdogan's coup. So that I don't think we're gonna. I don't want to hear from Dems that the fight is somehow we're going to sue, or somehow we'll subpoena him and he'll like Elon Musk and all of that stuff too. I think I'm interested to hear what Florida did in any of those ways that did throw sand in the gears and stop stuff. But I think we've got to move faster than sitting around waiting for Normaisan Swasu to kick in. I think when these are the 7 things that are on the agenda, and we have a complete capitulation in terms of our media's ability to inform people so that people can figure out how to mobilize ourselves.
Yeah. I think what is required in this moment is to ask, where is the actual power? So lawsuits, that's sand in the gears. Everything that slows down this machinery is sand in the gears, and I'm all for it. But you have to understand the difference between a few grains of sand in the gears and something capable of shutting down the machine. So Americans flexing economically can shut down the machine. I know that there's an effort underway to get everyone not to spend a penny on February 28th. I don't know whether that's all coming together, but we've got to start thinking about the ways that we actually do have impact. And inevitably, when corruption permeates the government, like Putin and who's the governor, the former governor of New York, who's become Giuliani, right? Everyone applauded them when they went after the mobsters, right? Oh wow, they're cleaning up New York. They're Putin's cleaning out the Russian mobs. No, he was eliminating competition.
Yeah.
And if you look at this as a criminal enterprise and you ask yourself, what would you do? What steps would be taken in this criminal enterprise for maximum gains? They're executing precisely what you would expect. And so understanding that this is a criminal enterprise helps us in terms of figuring out what our next steps are. Because part of creating a criminal enterprise to enrich yourself means you're going to leave some powerful people out of the mix. And, this is why we're in this very strange moment where if you think of it as a horseshoe, the left wing and the right wing of that horseshoe, how many protests in the 70s were calling for the end of the FBI and the end of the CIA, right? On the left. And now here you have the right shutting them down. And we're in this awkward position of going, I guess I got to go defend the CIA and the FBI. But, we should be thinking out of their wreckage, what might be rebuilt, and begin to breathe life into a future that isn't just a trauma response to everything they're doing, but actually says, yeah, we can do better than these institutions. And so we're not just trying to preserve flawed, incomplete institutions. We're going to rebuild something better.
I like that idea, because this is, if we can get through this moment intact, if it is an opportunity to fix everything, to go and, if their side is spent, we can come and say, okay, we're going to change this, we're going to change that, we're going to do the FDR thing, which is what happened. The country was so fucked up, and Hoover had done nothing for 4 years. FDR came in and just basically could do whatever the fuck he wanted, because he had the both houses of Congress and supermajority and all that stuff. And he tried to do a lot of things. So that is a hopeful moment. Getting from point A to point B, we'll see. It's sketchy. I feel like there's a critical mass of people that if they actually are able to fire and let go and are suddenly just hanging around in DC, probably not great for their side. Like, do you really want all of these FBI guys to just be suddenly home doing nothing? I think maybe no would be the answer. Do you really want all these CIA people to be doing that? Certainly not.
Yeah. Well, this is what I mean. The resistance to what is occurring is happening on all of these different levels. Veterans against fascism,
Mhm.
who are telling other veterans, remember your oath, enemies foreign and domestic. And they're not calling on people to be vigilantes, but they are calling on people to have those conversations with their buddies, because you're going to get an illegal order to do things that harm the American people. And what are you going to do in that moment? And, I'm not trying to make a rosier picture than there is. But as you say, in the aftermath of the oligarchs, FDR inherited the backlash to the backlash. And some people would describe this as an extinction burst, the final gasp, right?
Can you explain what that is? Because I saw a little TikTok-y thing about that, but that people might not know.
Yeah. I mean, this is a phenomenon that sometimes happens when people are sick right before they die. They have this what appears to be this incredible recovery, and it's shocking, but it's really the marshaling of every single resource they have left before they die. And on the right, one could argue, marriage equality was a place where the far right marshaled everything to stop what appeared to be the march towards public opinion swinging inevitably towards support of marriage equality. They threw everything at us. 38 states blocked marriage equality. But with each one of those losses, public opinion continued to climb. And suddenly what was impossible became inevitable. And so I think right now we're in this moment where globally, this is the potentially the extinction burst of fascism that is seeking to consolidate itself. They're not loyal to countries; they're loyal to their fortunes. It's not an accident that Thiel and Musk are South Africans and who enrich themselves through a system of apartheid and seek to recreate that and to punish part of U.S. aid, 1% of the budget, right? The best money America has spent to prevent war, to prevent the spread of disease, to create strategic alliances that stop soldiers from being in the line of fire, right? To stop coffins coming back draped with flags. It is the best money America spends. And yet the media cannot cover it except to take seriously this, them pumping into the airwaves through their media consolidation out of context numbers, right? This coming from an administration where the president never released his tax returns and where Elon Musk's fortune, vast fortune, approaching $1 trillion, comes from contracts with the American government. That he is the epitome of a welfare queen.
He is the welfare queen. That's what I'm calling him.
This is what I mean. Contextless information or treating information that distracts from telling the story is what is the fundamental failure of media right now. And unfortunately, now I recently interviewed Eric Deggans, who is like the media critic for NPR, and he's been in that role for decades. And I actually interviewed him on Inauguration Day, and he'd gotten into a little bit of hot water with influencers on social media who felt as though he was dismissive of them. I think the point he was trying to make was, are we going from the frying pan into the fire? Yes, the institutions of media are weak, and the funding mechanism for them is not improving. But are we now turning ourselves completely over to people who have no editors, no accountability, but they have big followings? And, and I understand his point, but I think it's why more and more people are turning to independent journalism. One of the things he said, it'll be interesting to watch what happens to Jim Acosta on CNN, somebody who's been a real truth teller about Donald Trump. And, if ABC moves him to midnight, that'll be a clear sign. Or wait, is it CNN? Moves him to midnight, that'll be a clear sign that they've capitulated. Well, of course, they moved him to midnight, and he's now left, and he's started, as many good journalists have done, their own media outlet. And so I think increasingly, we're turning to ProPublica, we're turning to Popular Information, we're turning to others, to provide context and insight on what's happening, because mainstream media that has been the target of relentless, battering, that has exploited all of their weaknesses, is now in shambles. And now they're going after the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, they're going after NPR, they're going after all of the institutions that might be truth tellers to compel them into submission. And so it is a very dangerous time, and it becomes all the more important that people, support these independent journalists that bring you both investigative journalism, but also commentary that provides a context to understand what's happening, and don't play whack-a-mole. Don't, sip responsibly from the information from social media streams, because their intention is to beat you down to a place where you just stop caring.
Yeah. It's hard.
Well, addict people first. The addiction, I feel like, was very, very intentional. And there's plenty of people who testified about all of that when, 10 years ago, of like, yep, this is what these social media platforms, how we design them, what we designed them to do. And, that was a dropping of the ball as a society and certainly congressionally, of trying to undo some of that harm. But once you've got people so addicted to their phones and to their apps and, into their games and whatever it might be, then then you've got them. Then it's they'll believe anything they read. They can get swept up with emotion. And I had a friend that was sending me so much stuff a while back when there was a big event going on, and it was like, who are these people and why are we listening to these people? I don't know who this person is that's coming and talking to me. So I think there's a hopefully in the center of the media landscape where you've got legacy media on one side and just rando influencers, Joe Rogan on the other end, and all folks like that you don't, like, especially there's all these women my age who were just, it's like, who is this person that's going from a vegan recipe to then try giving me some kind of tutorial on the justice system. It's mind-blowing. But in the center somewhere, I think you've got the new stuff coming in. You've got the Contrarian, founded by people who know what they're doing. You've got ProPublica. You've got this stuff that you were just saying. I don't know what we can do to keep amplifying those specific, I don't know any of the word, but center voices in the media where you've got people who are actually trained and disciplined in the craft of journalism, trained and disciplined in the craft of reporting, understand what it means to actually present a fact as opposed to an opinion, understand the difference between those two things, and can identify in real time when they're doing it. And shift gears back and forth. There's, Jim Acosta can do that. These people are trained in this.
I mean, facts without context are propaganda, right? Like, without any context for understanding what a budget is, if you tell me that you spent $80,000 to send condoms to some place, well, if I don't understand that by doing that, you prevent an outbreak that has very direct impacts on the lives, not only of people there, but on the lives of people here. And that by doing it, you create goodwill that allows you to prevent a hostile military base from being established there. That is the smartest $80,000 you could have spent. But we get contextless information that serves to create the chaos that they want. And I think we've just got to start asking ourselves, anytime information is provided to us, who is this intended to make me hate and why? Right? Because if you ask that one question, it begins to unravel, the motive. Because sometimes the question is nobody. I'm not being told to hate anybody. But if it becomes clear, why would I be told that they're eating cats and they're eating dogs with no evidence? To what purpose does it serve? And you talked earlier about your nervous system calming down, and I think this is a muscle that we've got to actually cultivate within ourselves, because when you're in fight or flight, all of your creative centers, all of your judgment goes out the window, and they want you in a state of panic. They want you in a constant state of fear. But instead, listen, I will never call the airport in DC anything but national. I will never call the Gulf of Mexico anything but the Gulf of Mexico. I refuse when they say this is done and it is forever. I say, yeah, bullshit. Nope, it ain't. Right. And so we get to talk to them that way. And I think it's important that we do. And so instead of, oh no, they've destroyed the FBI, we're helpless. It's like, what would have been a better structure than that? And how can we build it? And we can just reject their imposition of tyranny for the same reasons that, we keep reading the manifesto from Andor, because it is brittle. It does leak.
It leaks.
It is fragile. It requires this. They spend so much time making us afraid, because when we're not afraid, we kind of see behind the curtain and we see how, most people do not support what they are up to. But if they cow us into silence, into despair, then they can keep their puppet show going.
I think that's a great point. And I think to that point, there's going to be in the next couple of months a concerted effort on their part to shut down media. There's going to be lawsuits. Steve Wynn, that dickhead casino guy, is pushing the Supreme Court to look at this case that would basically make it much harder for journalists to write about and be critical of politicians. We have a long tradition in this country of satire and making fun of people in the way that we do. And Elon Musk has sued Media Matters, and that he's going to lose, but it affects their bottom line. And all of that stuff is going to happen, and we need to also be there to support that, because I get so frustrated with the whole New York Times, Washington Post big paper thing, because on the one hand, they're so fucking frustrating because they capitulate all the time, but on the other hand, they often do really good work that's indispensable. And if they weren't there, what would we do? Washington Post had an exclusive today about the British government and Apple, and that they want to, basically have all access to everything that anybody puts in the cloud. And this is a super top. So that's an amazing story that is in the Washington Post today. And, I'm a guy on Substack, and I'm telling you, a guy on Substack ain't getting that story. So these big legacy things they're fucking important, and they can't be destroyed they must be improved. They cannot be allowed to fail, in a sense.
Or
Mm-hmm.
the journalists and reporters
Mm-hmm.
who are very well trained, very well sourced, understand their craft, have the reputation, know what it takes to do the job and get the job done, find spaces where they're allowed to do the job and do the stories and chase the stories that are meaningful to them. So, and hopefully there are resources available to fund this, and the big funding not just being for the journalists to have a living that they can make, so that they can provide for their family, so they can do the job, the very important work, but so that there's a business affairs and legal departments at these outlets. It doesn't have to be the Washington Post, right? I'd love to just take the people from there that know what the fuck they're doing.
Substack has that. They do have.
Well, but they don't have. Is Substack going to have, if you're going to get sued, if all of a sudden in comes a lawsuit, is Substack going to show up with their attorneys?
I don't know, not necessarily, but they do allow for that. They have resources for that. So somebody like Acosta is probably going to be protected by that. Okay. Substack has a lot of money now, so it is, in a sense.
Yeah, and there are growing global networks like the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the Bureau of Investigative Journalists. There's growing numbers of these reporters who have left, whether it's the LA Times, New York Times, Washington Post, that are kind of forging a new path and a new model, because the old model for journalism was that the hard news was paid for by classified ads and Macy's. And once that went away, they did, subscriptions were not taking up the slack. Subscriptions were never underwriting. And at the end of the day, those are for-profit entities, and they made a ton of money. And so now they're being, I agree with you, Greg, that some of the best journalism is happening at those institutions where they have some resource, and they have, unfortunately, it's inconsistent, and it's waning.
Right.
But I would say to individuals, there are reporters out there that you trust, you respect. They've opened Substacks or some other Patreons or what have you. And, we have a budget in my house where we pay for subscriptions to those independent journalists that are doing incredible work. And, at wideawakeamerica.org, we've got a commitment to keeping our information always, nothing's behind a paywall, no need to subscribe. We appreciate when people do, but part of it is that I think we are in this massive imbalance where the far right puts nothing behind a firewall. Their propaganda is pumped into our eyeballs 24/7. And we've created a world in which journalists, in order to eat, who have integrity, are, moving to places that require individual subscriptions. And I say, subscribe to as many as you can. We're going to have to start putting our support behind the journalists that are doing the kind of coverage that we need and are facing the blowback from the Elon Musks and the Steve Winns and, the Mike Flynn's, all of those people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the paywalls, that's interesting I hadn't thought about that the right-wing places don't have behind the paywall. I hate paywalls. I don't use a paywall. But
you have inspired me to not have a paywall. And I'm grateful for the people who do come in as paid subscribers, but I'll never put it behind a paywall because
I want people to
we've got to have these conversations. We have to have these conversations.
Yeah.
It's important. It's very important. Do you want to say anything else about the capitulation of media?
Well, I think one of the things is that capitulation never works. It didn't stop the White House from kicking out all the legacy media and replacing them with these right-wing, mouthpieces. And, it's almost Shakespearean. There's no level to which you can debase yourself that will put you in their good graces. So you might as well stiffen your spine and show up for the people who need you. And I think that
they'd see revenues go through the roof. I bet they start to see more subscriptions. I bet
they're not going to the right will never trust them. They are, they're losing any semblance of respect. And it is unfortunate because there are high caliber quality journalists who are working in legacy media and they're watching, the ground beneath them, turn to sand. And we do have a vested interest in the fourth estate, the accountability and the, a noble band of independent journalists by themselves without real support aren't going to be able to be a countervailing balance. But I do think that we are beginning, it's beginning to hit home. I know FAFO is a very prominent hashtag right now on social media because there's a lot of people figuring out, oh, I was lied to, and I think the temptation to say, I got no tears for you. We warned you this was going to happen. As short-term satisfying as that might be, just delays the place where where the sort of libertarian and progressive horseshoe touches and that possibility of a populist uprising against these oligarchs, which is going to be necessary and was necessary when FDR swept into office. So don't give up the hope. Understand, even in the midst of all of this turmoil, that we come from a lineage of people who have faced what seemed like impossible odds. And, we got to stay in it. We got to keep throwing that sand in the gears. And one day it will be the final grain that knocks it off its tracks. Yeah.
And that's all it will take, as they say, as the Andor Manifesto makes clear.
Exactly.
As the Andor Manifesto. Okay, so let's move on now to you can hang around. You're good? You're good to go?
I'll stick around, sure.
Okay.
I still have a little in my glass, so I'll stick around.
Okay, all right, perfect.
All right,
I'm going to put the timer on, though, guys. We'll go for the timer.
Now we go for the timer. We have to talk about this DEI stuff because it's confusing me a little bit, and I want to just talk through it to maybe alleviate my confusion. I feel like, first of all, there's clearly a war on DEI, right? They talk about it all the time, and I get that. I get that he thinks, or maybe it is kind of red meat for the base. First it was CRT, and then they come up with these terms that are just dog whistles and stuff like that. But now it's over. They won the election, right? Well, whatever. They're in the White House. I don't know if they won the election, but they're there, and they're in charge, right? So, but they keep up with this DEI stuff. They keep talking about it. They keep bringing it into the forefront. Pam Bondi, who's the new Attorney General, the crook from Florida, who you pay her $25,000, she'll shut down the case for you, which I guess is good, maybe. For people, if we have a problem, we'll just,
oh my God,
give her some dough and watch it go away. One of the first things she did upon taking the job is saying, we're going to try to find corporations that are doing DEI and figure out how we can, go after them for that, which is just like, all this shit happening, and that's what you're going to focus on. It makes Merrick Garland look like somebody that was busy with something important almost. It's stunning. Meanwhile, Trump is going to New Orleans to the Super Bowl on Sunday, and one of the organizations that has been like, we are not going back on the DEI, we are sticking with it, is the NFL. So is he a hypocrite? Why is he going? Why don't you just stay the fuck home, Donald? If it means so much to you, why are you going to support an organization that's very, very staunchly pro DEI? So I have no idea what any of this means. I don't know. I guess the question that I have, okay, is what is the end game? Where are they going with this? Is it all performative? Is it just they want to say, it's all right, guys, we're all racist fucks and we hate everybody? Or is it more sinister than that? And they really are wanting to go back to a time of, when everybody's rights are just rolled back, back to the 1840s or whatever. Like, I don't know. Nadine, what do you think? What's going on?
Well, we've seen this before. It was Atwater talking about, the Southern strategy, where you couldn't drop the N-bomb, so you just replace it with welfare queen. You just replace it with busing, and you use words that are intended to invoke in people the idea of Black people, brown people being dangerous. And so this is just this is just the update of that. It's intended to inject into the consciousness of white America a suspicion. So anybody who achieves anything who is not white got there on a DEI, pass. It is what you say when you can't say the N-word, but you want to communicate it. And so, they'll keep doing it because it is the thing that allows them to tap into the sense of outrage. So when people are feeling like, hey, this economy is not working for me, I'm not going to do better than my parents, I'm saddled with debt as a student, who's to blame? I can't use the racial slur, but I'll just say DEI. I'll say critical race theory. I'll invoke drag queens. I'll invoke the transgender community. Anyone is to blame except for the guy who's lined his pockets, as no one ever has before, with taxpayer dollars, Elon Musk. It's much easier to continue to pump suspicion and dis-ease with people who are different from you. So, we'll continue to see it because it has always been, the Southern strategy has been a winner. Of course, they'll keep going to it.
Yeah. It's also, I have a little anecdote and then something that happened that is so stupid that it's worth talking about. So there was this actual sort of Nazi who was like out to get me for a little while a few years back, and Holocaust denier, the whole works. And I happen to know from a journalist who covered him that his like big weak spot and like touch point was bringing up Harvard, right? This journalist would like always just bring up Harvard. It's like, when he went to Harvard, because he knew, right, when talking to this subject, because the Holocaust denier, his whole grievance, his whole thing of where all of his stuff came from was that he didn't get into Harvard, and because it was a DEI. I don't know if that term was around then, or but as a journalist conveyed it to me, it was, it was the raison d'etre for all of the hatred and all of the conspiracy theories and all of the, turned into like, Mossad is responsible for everything and like, Likud, and all this weirdness was literally got boiled down to he applied to Harvard and didn't get in. And the position went to somebody else. And so it's also this sort of scapegoating mediocrity, and rather than confronting, this individual confronting or just dealing with rejection or like a no, what? No, you didn't get it. No, we don't want you. Or no, you're not. Yeah, we're going to go another direction. Not being able to handle just basic rejection of life this woundedness, this grievance, right? I think there's a lot of that in there too. I think it helps when you see a lot of these moms, right? White women moms that are jumping on this bandwagon and they're so happy, right? That, oh, now my girl will be a tennis star. No, your girl was never going to be a tennis star. It doesn't matter if there was a trans athlete in there. Your kid is a mediocre piece of shit. Sorry. Like,
plus they're going to gut all the funding for women's sports.
Find something else. Stop being such a toddler. So I think there's just a ton of that in white America. I really believe it's just this vast mediocrity and inability to just process that. And hatred is the easy go-to. That's a big part of it. The specific other part of it, though, and I do think there's grifting and there's all this stuff, and yes, it's a go-to and it's a playbook. There's something more sinister at work with this one, though, and I can't quite put my finger on it to articulate too much, but I'm very nervous about history, and I'm very nervous about. I think there's a real. We're really in jeopardy. Because of how everything is recorded now and kept digitally, we're very much in jeopardy of losing reality, of it being unwound right underneath us. And I think this is a very this is sort of like a place where reality, historical reality, can be unwound under this guise of DEI, we got to get rid of it. And no one will know that happened because they're so focused on the present and maybe my rights right now and what does the future hold, and not realizing shit's getting wiped out and there's no bringing it back. And that specific example of that I saw, which was the other thing I want to note, was Elizabeth Friedman, who was the founder of, and everyone knows it, the podcast about her and all kinds of research and study. I was in her archives. I know a lot about, I'm fascinated with this woman and have a very familiar connection in that my uncle, my dad's twin, who worked at the NSA for 35 years and many, National Security Agency, many different positions, mostly in HR, but then he had a lot of very special projects that he was in charge of. And he was part of the declassification team for historical stuff that happened within the NSA that had been kept secret, that then we were learning about it. So that the declassification of Elizabeth Friedman and her contribution to the National Security Agency, which was, guess what? And a lot of it was public record. There was a lot of public record of what she did. She created cryptology. She created the whole fucking science by on top of which signal intelligence was born, and then created the agency itself. Created the agency. She did it. So no one hired her. She wasn't a DEI hire. She's an inventor. Unlike Elon Musk, who didn't invent shit, this woman invented something. She invented the science of decrypting code signals without having the cipher. How do you do that? What is the science? There's a scientific method to that then ended up being zeros and ones. Like, it's just like crazy. So her picture at the NSA, which wasn't up from its inception, that's true. It may have been that they're going to turn to something and say, well, this was declassified and it shouldn't have been, and it's only because she's a woman that we're learning about that, that her story became important. Well, excuse me, I know the man who declassified it. He, as he was doing it, was teaching me specifically one-on-one about Elizabeth Friedman, because he was declassifying, saying, here you go. I just declassified. We just did this. You got to read about this woman. There's more that's coming. So her existence and her creation and her contribution didn't happen during a DEI policy, diversity, equity, inclusion policy. It happened historically. She just happened to be a woman. So if we're going to go back and erase contributions, erase historical figures, erase the actual history of where and even the biggest and most powerful spy agency in the world came from, because a woman was a godmother. There's no godfather. It wasn't a white man. It was a white woman, Jewish woman, she married a Jewish man. Is that what we're doing now? Is that where this thing is going? So to me, that's far more sinister, Greg, because that God only knows then what ground we're standing on. If it's not even like we can't have an agreed upon set of facts in reality right now in this moment because of disinformation, this is shit that actually happened in reality 100 years ago is erased.
It's listening to you talk about that. I think the most pernicious thing, or one of the things, is that even the term DEI hire, because the D and the E and the I, people forget what they even stand for. It sort of creates, or is trying to create, this internal bias where people assume that every hire is a DEI hire unless proven otherwise, right? Which is, of course, not true. That's why it's so dangerous, I think. Like, we go back to the grievance of the person, the Nazi that you were talking about earlier, and that era of things. It's like, the reason why these laws exist is to prevent discrimination. It's to prevent Donald Trump from saying, I'm not renting my apartment complexes to Black people at all. It's to prevent banks from not lending to people. It's to prevent state governments from not, having bakeries bake cakes for gay couples getting married or whatever. It's not, it goes on and on and on and on. It's to protect people from, who they are. Like in the title, I always get Title VII and Title IX mixed up, but there's protected classes in the Constitution, which is mostly things you're born with that you're not allowed to be discriminated against, which is your sex, your orientation, your race, your country of origin, that kind of thing. You're not supposed to be able to discriminate against that. And everybody should be for that. This isn't some fucking radical liberal concept. It's not.
Yeah. I think one of the problems is even in how we respond to it. Like, people end up putting their credentials forward as Black people, as women, instead of going, no, we had a system of quotas in which 100% of the people hired for these positions were white men, regardless of their qualification. And so we had to put in rules that ensured that the best person got hired. And that required them to consider race, gender,
And then imagine a time before those rules were put into place, somebody who was a woman that actually did get hired and was so skillful and so talented and had such knowledge that was requisite and was literally saving the Southern Hemisphere from fucking fall to fascism single-handedly, pretty much, right? Earning. Imagine breaking through and all that's around you is white men and everything above you and everyone taking credit for your work is a fucking white man. And you're still acknowledged as the expert in the whole world and the best in what you do. Imagine what that takes to get through that eye of that needle and stand there. And now they're tearing that, they're erasing that.
They are definitely trying to, but I think the reason so many extraordinary people emerge in these history books, you're talking about Elizabeth Freeman, but like the hidden figures, all of these stories get told because for you to even have stood in that place, you had to be extraordinary. You had to be extraordinary at your job, and you had to be extraordinary at dealing with the racism, the sexism, the homophobia, all of these things. Yeah. And so that's why there's so many stories about extraordinary people. But I think we have to stop what we have seen in this Trump administration. If you didn't understand white privilege before, you've got to understand it now. as you watch appointee after appointee with no skill set, with charges looming or convictions on their record that ought to have disqualified them from sitting in the room to begin with.
Yeah.
But they're trying to make us have a conversation to justify anyone who's not a white man in any position. And so we've got to flip that around and stop arguing on their territory, which is the assumption that white men are qualified and anyone who isn't has to be a DEI hire. We got to get rid of that nonsense and say, these laws are in place because left to your own devices, you have reinforced not being a meritocracy, not hiring the best person, discriminated against an incredible talent bank, the talent that has actually built this nation.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's not the thinking and what they're trying to put forward and suggest is that the discrimination is some sort of reverse discrimination, and it's not how it is. It is exactly the opposite of that. So
and let us not forget that they've included accessibility, right?
Yeah. Greg Abbott in Texas. Somebody go to Texas and get rid of all the ramps, please. Come on.
Well, this is what I mean.
Let's live that way.
Yeah, this is eugenics. This is about a master race that is white, able-bodied, all of these things. And this is the doorway that they open to get people to be resentful of curb cuts and ramps. That's about weakness. That's about, that's not the world that Elon Musk envisions. So we really have to understand the context in which they are doing this. It is very planful. It is very directed. It's very purposeful. And we got to call it out.
In the whole, I've never read the eugenics thing and the whole Aryan playbook, but is the like the beer gut that sticks out of the t-shirt, like with Elon, is that like supposed to represent something cool, or is that a desirable trait?
Elon Musk has had more gender affirming surgery than any 10 people I know.
It's true.
And so much of the attack on the transgender community is because it's a narrow slice of the population. It is easy in that ignorance to weaponize.
Yes.
And it serves the function of seeing how far can we go, right? It serves that function of saying, okay, we are going to dictate what healthcare you can and cannot access, which makes it so much easier to say, you can't access abortion care. Oh, you can't access the kind of care that can lower, dying in childbirth with Black women. We can restrict you from getting access to birth control. Like all of these things, you test on who you consider the weakest, least politically powerful, and then you simply expand. And by the time it's at the doorstep, then we're back to the Niemoller. I didn't say anything because it didn't affect me. And then, as they came after each successive group. So, fight the fight when the target is small, because if you do not, they will sharpen their weapons on the bones of the people you ignored. You may not be an immigrant, but these laws, the Lake and Riley Act, allows them to stop anyone, including American citizens, and detain you indefinitely with no recourse. Because you've allowed that to happen, they have expanded it to a place where you can end up in an El Salvadoran prison because Marco Rubio just cut a deal with El Salvador, right?
Where is the recourse? We didn't even get to this topic. I think we have to come back to it next week. Next week. But the prison thing is a big deal. That's a big deal. And it's terrifying. Yeah. I did not have that on my bingo card. I had a lot. I had Guantanamo on there.
Well, they're doing that. They did do that.
Yeah, they've already started that. And again, everybody throw sand in the gears. If, slow down ICE. Do not cooperate. Look out for your neighbors. Like we have, this is a very grassroots thing. The Democratic Party is not going to save you. No nonprofit. And I work for a nonprofit. We do great work, but we are not going to save you. It's going to take everybody throwing their fistful of sand in the gears. That's just the way it is right now.
To your point, like there's going to be this thing where local police hook up with ICE to do the roundups, and that's where it has to come. Like if local police in your town are doing stuff, you need to make their lives miserable. You need to make everybody, they need to have consequences socially
Yeah,
what they're doing.
DeSantis just announced that the Florida Highway Patrol is going to be working with ICE.
Mm-hmm.
They can pull you over without cause, without reason, simply because they've profiled you, the color of your skin, the kind of car you drive, what have you. And under the Lake and Riley, they can detain people indefinitely without recourse. This ought to, it doesn't matter if you were born here 8 generations. This ought to scare the hell out of everybody and cause you to intervene on the behalf of people who will be abused by this, even if you think the color of your skin, your position in society will protect you. You have to intervene.
Right.
And so that's, do not be so fearful at this moment. We can actually push back, and Florida has proven, the Don't Say Gay, Don't Say Trans bill. We're able to go to court and get so much of it gutted and get more things than we even asked for. We have had Moms for Liberty on the run because we've shown up to school boards with real parents talking about their actual children in those school districts. 72% of Moms for Liberty candidates lost this last election, including people who lost on election night when Trump was elected president. And so the message from Florida, loud and clear, is gum up the works. Do everything in your power. Show up. Cede nothing to them. Do not be fearful. Stand toe to toe, and you'll see them blink more often than not.
I like it.
I like it.
That's how we have to do.
Thank you, Nadine.
Does anybody have any announcements?
I don't.
Nadine, do you have any announcements?
Do I?
Stop by and say hi, wideawakeamerica.org. And, keep, everybody. I wish I had the clip from Andor, since we've invoked it several times, but paste that to the mirror in your bathroom, and just remember, if you weren't so powerful, they would not be trying this hard to silence you.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. I did post it the other day on Blue Sky, so if you look through my media postings there, you could see the Andor manifesto, which is good. Yeah. I have I guess I have an announcement. I put a book together of some of my Sunday pages that deal with the Nazi stuff and the fascism stuff, and I'm going to publish that soon, possibly as soon as next week. We'll see. It's kind of a fun thing I'm trying, just to distract me from the fucking horrible horrors that are going around me. I'm like, I'll just concentrate on my own writing about horrible horrors. So it's a thing, it's a thing. So.
Well, Sunday pages are a ritual at our home. Andrea reads them out loud to me, and we laugh, we cry, we love how you bring things full circle. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Yeah, that should be out soon. Now, do we have time? Can you stay, or you got to go? It's late.
It's late. Can you stay?
I got a little bit left in the glass.
Okay.
Me too. But I cheated and refilled my glass. Okay.
I don't have a refill. I drank all my water. All right. So, not to shock everybody.
Yeah.
Not to shock everybody. But Greg and I have been having serious conversations of the value of a divorce.
Yep.
Not us, not the show. We're not breaking up. But, we had, and the reason why, and I want to give this some context so that everybody knows we're not just going, we had, if folks remember, we had Brent Tannehill on, I would say about 1.5 years ago. Was it that long? Was it that?
I think it was 22.
It felt like a century ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was a canary in the coal mine saying, look, this is the way it's going to go if he ever gets back into office, is we're either going to, or someone, with the same agenda, that's more capable. Although this guy seems pretty capable to me. Sorry, guys. I've always been saying that. It's like, yeah, he's dumb, but he knows what he's doing. That will, the United States has sort of one of two paths. It will either, and go ahead, Greg, I'll let you finish it. We're either going to be hungry or.
And again, let's before we even go further, let's say this is not what we want to have happen. We're just we're just talking out the possibilities here.
Talking about
obviously what we want to have happen is to get rid of these fucking people, change everything for the better, and all be, together again. But absent that, if this, if 6 months from now, if there's jackboots in the streets and people are, and we can't do the show because we're in El Salvador,
oh my God.
We have to, and the Wi-Fi sucks there, frankly. It's even worse than here in my house. So if it gets to that point, it's not fait accompli. There's no, there are actions. Like Bryn said, and again, Bryn wrote a book called American Fascism that came out, I don't know, 22, I think, kind of outlining all of this stuff. The first time that I heard about Project 2025, it was from her. And I heard about it before many, many people heard about it. Right. So, but I heard about it from her and all this stuff that they were planning and doing. And she said, if it gets to that point with the, with the fascism where that's what's happening. The destruction
of the institutions. Yeah.
Where it's completely broken down. Yeah. It's either going to be Hungary or it's going to be Yugoslavia, meaning it's going to be a slow roll into totalitarianism, because these things don't happen overnight. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's, if it works, it's going to be a process, right? Where it's a little bit here, a little bit there. First, Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and these guys capitulate, then the legacy media, and then they do the things with the courts. There's a playbook which they're trying pretty expressly to work out right now. That's what they're working on right now. If it gets to that point, it's either going to be float into Hungary, or some of the states are going to be like, fuck it, we're out, and that's what she meant by Yugoslavia, where it's just a
balkanization. Yeah.
Balkanization. Right. Yeah. Now, again, I'm going to keep saying this is not what we really want. What we really want is for these fucking people to leave, and we can set everything right again and use all of this bullshit.
Or do some new things, as Nadine
we saying, all we need to do is fix the Senate. If the Senate wasn't so absolutely fucked, the architecture of the Senate, where Wyoming has the same number of senators as New York, which is stupid. And you ask a second grader about it and they'll be like, that's dumb, because it's stupid, right? If we could fix that, that would probably be enough, I think. But anyway, if it doesn't get to that point, I don't know, New York is pretty great, and they want to keep hurting everybody. Like you said, we'll just fucking leave. I mean, we don't have to stay. It's not a covenant wedding. It's not a covenant marriage, right? We all are opposed to that. So it was never determined by the Supreme Court whether or not it was legal under the Constitution for a state to leave. So I don't know. I don't know if it is. I don't know.
Oh, we've got somebody in the comments.
I feel bad talking about this because poor Nadine is in Florida and is like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
No, we'll bring her to New York. So we've got somebody saying in the comments that secession is on the ballot in California in 2028. There was this big push, and it was a Russian active measure. It was out of the Kremlin back in 2016 in that election to have this, remember Cal exit? There was Brexit, and it was like, let's have Cal exit. And, of course.
Just because he married a Russian woman and moved to Moscow doesn't mean he's a Russian asset. Come on.
Of course, Putin wants Alaska. So, yes. Is it the desire of our adversaries and once massive enemies for us to just break apart, and we shouldn't give them that? And and also it's their desire to have us tear each other apart, which we've done.
Right.
So a lot of desires are being met. It's okay if it's also one of my desires to get the fuck away from these people. I just like get out. And, sure, we can leave. People can leave and we can do things. But it's also about, if it's going to be a totalitarian power with all of the resources that the United States have, I throwing sand in the gears at that point, Nadine, for me is like the best thing we can do for humanity, for the planet, and for one another is to take some of the strength away from that. If it's a fait accompli, and that's what it is, then I would like to damage it. And the way I think to damage it, one of the best ways to damage it is to break it up into pieces. So there's that argument as well. But we'll see. Anyway, that was our thought experiment. We thought we'd share it with you guys.
Yeah.
Nadine, people are freaking out in the comments, and I understand why.
Why are they freaking out?
Well, I mean, I think it's a heavy thing to talk about. You know, the last time there was a conversation about splitting up the country. It was in the context of slavery, and the good guys weren't the ones trying to split it up.
Yeah, they were. It wasn't the good. You know, we wanted to hold the nation together. That was the big vision.
But
scary. Yes, that means we're going to get through it. That is one way of getting through it. What we're just talking about is, what do we? If we can't get rid of, if it becomes a true oligarchy, which on his way out the door, Joe Biden in that speech, it's plenty to talk about, but he decided to really focus on oligarchs and an oligarchy because you can't undo that.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing:
the monarchs and the oligarchs. The Russians showed us how to do it. The French were pretty good at it. You know, that's an extreme as well.
Yeah. Well, but just to be clear, this oligarchy is international. Brexit, the same people behind Brexit, Farage, and all of those folks, Bannon, the same people behind the invasion of Ukraine. The oligarchs do not think of themselves in terms of nations. They think of themselves in terms of a class. They think of themselves as rulers. And so, yes, it's not an accident that Elon Musk from South Africa comes here, fudges his way through our immigration process, takes credit for things that he didn't build, and is Zig Heiling behind the presidential seal, and then goes to Germany and says, you guys should stop feeling so bad about your Nazi past. Like, where do you go to escape that?
It's hard. It is hard. Yeah.
And even the idea that that splitting up in whatever mechanism to split up the country, will that save you from oligarchs, or does it, weaken the position, to have 8 different nations out of the remains? So I'm just saying, I understand.
I really don't know. I just think for me, it's, I don't want to not have it on the table for contemplation. Not to be an agitator. I'm not trying to do that. It's just this idea of like, no, we can never have that. That's not getting us anywhere either. And in the space of really coming to terms with, it could actually all be lost.
Yeah.
Our understanding of and how we defined ourselves and who we were as a nation actually could be over, and over in a manner that is way deeper and scopier, just more final than what people's brains are allowing them to come to terms with, and process. I think denial is I learned this when I was overcoming my own disability, but denial is not your friend. It's not your friend ever, 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 ever. There's not a space in which it's going to come to your aid, really, truly, when you're up against something real. And so I just have a muscle for myself that I've created, Nadine, where I do not want to live when I can identify there's some denial going on. I'm out really fast. I run from that fast and right into the harshest form of the reality that I can be comfortable with and try to grasp, so that I feel prepared. That's my survival gear. That's as in not gear that I wear, but as in the gear of the car. That's my transmission. It does that. And I do think it's important. And this was supposed to be sort of like more of a fun segment because we were going to let, but it's heavy.
It is
It's
heavy.
important. It's important
because people, part of how they're freaking out is about finances. The idea of either fleeing the country or breaking up the country implies the resources to move about. And so I think the moment you have these conversations, you begin to have a conversation about what options people have.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
for sure.
And we're taking everybody.
We're taking
New York, taking everybody. All the immigrants come.
We're taking everybody. It's more also, it's not a fake sort of threat as a real consideration. When that starts to be entertained with seriousness by people and you really start to look at it and what would it take and what would it mean, it does force everybody into a stark moment of realization, including the people who think they want to get rid of, us blue states.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know they can't survive without it. And so then it's sort of like you start to empty your pockets and pony up. Let's see, just turn over your fucking cards. Let's call this bluff.
Right. But for example, California could call a bluff right now, right? California contributes more to the federal government than it receives. Mm-hmm. And according to the Constitution, California could use a horse and buggy to slowly deliver what is due to Washington, D.C., in the most inconvenient manner possible, in a way that would have a real effect, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to send out for a whole shitload of dimes.
Yeah, a whole bunch of dimes.
A whole bunch of dimes.
In a slow caravan.
Yeah.
And, we are the decentralized notion of our country. Usually states' rights are something that the right is leaned on. I think it's but it can be the thing that we lean on. So I'm just saying that the conversations about fleeing the country, dividing the country, I think they require a deeper thought about whether it plays into the hands of a Steve Bannon who wants to see it all burn.
But Steve Bannon's burning it. I mean, not him specifically, but
he is. He is.
But they are burning it. So
they are.
That's what I'm talking about.
So if you've ever been on a sinking boat,
yeah,
there is a window of time where bailing makes sense, and there becomes a moment when bailing no longer makes sense. And if you don't get off that boat, you will be pulled under by the force of that boat.
Yeah, correct.
And so it is difficult to both bail and bail out at the same time. And so I think that's the tension that you're hearing or seeing in the comments.
Well, I'll look back over this. I'm saying listen, I know everyone's like, nope, in 4 years, we'll have an election. We can get rid of him. It's like, I think there's some denial going on here. I think there's a lot of denial going on here. I think there's denial about a lot of things when it comes to, we can just rah our way like we've always done. What do you mean? Like we've always done to get ourselves to this exact moment right here? This is different than sand. This is a sand in the gear. And I'm not saying it happens. I'm saying we need to look at this and what are the steps before that to really prep the ground for it. I think there's things that will test it, as Greg has been saying for a while. What happens when your state wants somebody in our state,
which is happening now with New York,
which is happening right now.
What's happening with abortion?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? Yep.
And so what is New York going to do to protect?
New York is not. New York said no. She basically said no fucking way.
Right. And then they're going to show up. Then what happens when they show up? I'm saying, so there's this whole thing of like, don't hand things over to the people who are burning it all down. Those people who want it to be burned down for our adversaries, They're here. They're burning it down. They're showing up with the tiki torches. They're marching in and they're burning your house specifically because, it makes them laugh. And they're taking all of your money. And they're like, let's just see what they're going to do. If all of a sudden there's no Social Security and Medicaid that everybody's paid into all this time, and I have as we all do, beloved parents and seniors and family members who need that, who are in care right now. I have someone right now in care, right, that she needs. And if she loses her Medicaid and she loses her Social Security that's taken from her, she's homeless, she is unhoused, and she is like, this is going to happen across the country. If they do that thing that they're threatening to do, and this happens, then, and we have a way to leave that bullshit and make sure we're taking care of what our people are taking care of. It's going to get here. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to make everybody's head explode. I'm just saying, it's one thing to sit here, for us to sit here and you guys to be there and us to talk about, well, they're going to do these things. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it's a totally different thing than when it does happen and you're sitting there with fucking nothing. Holding on.
And you thought this was going to be a lighthearted segment at the end?
At the end, lighthearted segment. I
can't imagine.
At some point, and at what point do we get our brains into this conversation? And not the conversation, I'm not talking about the breaking up and leaving conversation, the conversation of this, it's over. It's not that we can still make it through this. We can still have something new. We can, all of that is always there. There's always that possibility is always there. There's always a way through and a way out. But only if everything is always on the table and we're in a very clear and prescient state and we're dealing with reality. That's all I'm saying.
Well, again, there's lots of people who have left Florida because Florida became untenable. I have nothing but respect for people who moved because their kids couldn't get health care that they needed, or they couldn't get health care. Right. And at the same time, they would love for the resistance to flee to other countries. And they would love for all of us to get into a position that treats them as a potent inevitability instead of contested ground. So I don't disagree with the idea that everything is on the table. We're dealing with arsonists that want to burn everything to the ground. And I also think that we should take care to not measure the enemy more powerful than they are and us weaker than we actually are in the face of it.
Yes.
I like it.
I like that a lot.
One more thing about the
Greg left me out there. I know I was talking a lot, but you come on.
I want to see how you plan this to be lighthearted.
I'm just going to say, how funny would it be, right? If Trump is the president and New York is just like, we're out, we secede. It'd be so funny because then he couldn't go back to Trump Tower. It'd be worth it just for that.
It might be worth it just for that. The other thing about it, maybe take New Jersey as well, and then he can't go to Bedminster. Yeah. But the other part of it is this thing that we have interpreted as that's what they want because it hurts us. Maybe it's actually something that would benefit us and hurt them.
Yeah.
Well, I will suggest something here, and perhaps it's because of my lineage and what my ancestors endured and rose from in a world that did not appear to ever be on the verge of change. That somebody said it in here. I think what is required in this moment is the kind of unsexy community organizing and connection that doesn't make great headlines. But, I have spent, Florida is the epicenter of all of this polarization. It has become where all of these oligarchs have homes. And and our ability to speak to, for example, when I talked about those parents flooding the school board meetings, we didn't check their voter registration, but they were Democrats and Republicans, because what we were able to do is show them what was happening. And so I guess what I'm saying is, at every time in American history, under slavery, under Jim Crow, in the civil rights movement, there have been people that I have nothing but respect for, James Baldwin, who've gone overseas to escape this.
That's right.
But they've also they never abandoned the fight. And so, and thank God they brought that wisdom. And there are a lot of people who are here either because they have no other options and they're going to have to fight in these places. And I want to send the message that right now, the die is not cast. There's a terrible future possibility ahead of us, but the die is not cast. And so the time may come when I say, yeah, let's break this thing apart. But it's not today.
It's not today. Thank you for that. It's not today. It's not. And I don't even know that it's
and even if whenever it is
in any near future.
We're never talking about giving up the fight.
No.
The only reason we would break up is to make the fight more on our side, easier for us. So
if it's part of the fight.
Yeah.
The only reason to do that is if it is part of the fight.
Going somewhere else is not going to help, by the way. There's nowhere else to go. I mean, although I have to say, all this tariff bullshit, I think, a month ago, I was convinced Polyev was going to win in Canada, and now I don't think so anymore.
That's cool.
I think the Canadians are like, fuck this noise. I think that's what I think. And I think that's great.
Well, this is what I mean. This is a gangster coming into your deli and saying, nice place you got here. Same if anything happens to it, right? This is the terror shakedown. And what did he get? He got exactly what Biden had already negotiated. But, it is all about the story they get to tell. Yeah, you know what? We really showed them who's boss. And so we've got to see, I've said it before, there's the mouse in front of the flashlight. You can look at the mouse or you can look at the shadow. And we got to look at the mouse and understand what it is and not be so afraid of the shadow that it casts. And, it is a perilous time. People are going to get hurt. Bad things are going to happen in our country. And they will be worse if we do not stand together and reach across. I just interviewed Rich Logis from Leaving MAGA. And, I remember my first conversation with him in a stairwell at Howard before Leaving MAGA was an organization. And he is inundated daily with people who are having that aha moment, who are seeing what these policies are doing to them. The same people that you fear are going to lose their health insurance or lose their Social Security benefits. We have to hold on to the possibility that we are on the verge of the kind of breakthrough that brought in the New Deal, but on steroids. So yes, I'm not afraid of looking the reality in the face. And Bryn is somebody who's I've followed for years and years, and you need people who say it like it is, but we also have to make sure that people don't give up the fight prematurely, don't give up the boat.
No. Yeah, there's none of that. And there's no giving up the fight prematurely. There's no giving up the fight
ever.
Thank you for
Slava
that.
Ukraine.
That's
just for your
Slava Ukraine. Yeah, I was putting the Ukraine up there. The Super Bowl thing is an interesting thing, right? Because is that this weekend? Is this Sunday? Is that what's going on? Great.
We're going to end with you guys giving me Super Bowl picks. So
I'm about to defy lesbian stereotypes and tell you I have no idea.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go for Chiefs, and I'm doing that for Chunk, right? But I'm from Kansas City. Just to put a little button on what you were saying in terms of people waking up. If we're following the playbook of, and I've been saying this, and I'll keep saying this, if it's following the playbook of what Putin did, there was a point where he took people's pensions. He stole the pension funds. So that I know will get, you got to look at what's going to get middle-aged, privileged mediocre white dudes who are sitting with, who can pay mortgages that most people cannot pay. Like talk about suburban moms. Think about who they're married to. That dude, that motherfucker. What's going to get that guy to and there's a lot of them in Kansas City. It's all in Overland Park. They're all out there thinking, speaking of the Chiefs. So I know those guys, right? What's going to get those guys to turn? And what's going to get them to turn is if they have to move their mother-in-law into their house because she's can't be in her nursing home anymore and not be able to afford the next four-wheeler toy that they wanted to have, or go on a trip with their buddies to Cuba to do God knows what they do down there, that or somehow make some kind of sacrifice. I'm a little bit uncomfortable because I can't spend as much. I can't get my seats at Chiefs Stadium right anymore, right? Then it's all over. So whatever we got to do for that guy, right, Mr. Chiefs fan, and I'm sure it's the same. It's just that the Eagles, is that who they're playing? The Eagles?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure that dude exists in Philadelphia suburbs as well.
Yeah.
As soon as that white dude, who you know him, he's got the car with too much shit in it on it. It makes too much noise. He's the neighbor with every power tool, but he doesn't use them. Or if he does use them, it's only at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. Because he's got
oddly specific, Stephanie.
Yes,
oddly specific.
You know this guy. Everybody knows this guy.
He lives across the street.
He lives across the street, and his name is Paul.
His name is Paul.
Yes. Well, let me say this about that. Paul is finding out that Trump is breaking all of his promises to his union, and we are in a moment where even the police union, which has no history of doing the right thing, criticized the pardons. We do see people who were saying, "Hey, wait a second, my wife just lost her job in the State Department." There's a lot of awakenings that are happening. But I do just want to say this in response to some folks in the chat. I talked about all of the ways we need to support independent media, and among that is local community radio, and that's where I got my start. As a volunteer back when I was in college, and I'm glad to return there with the Wide Awake America show, 88.5 WMNF, and everybody has one of those in their community, and so support your local media, because increasingly, as you've been describing, both of you, we are going to have to lean on local media so much harder. Those places that aren't in the pocket of big business and can't be flexed on. To show up. So yes, shout out local radio, 88.5.
I love it.
Nadine,
thank you so much for coming on, because I feel like you've, as I knew you would, you've uplifted my spirit, and I'm feeling all right. But then you wake up and you're like, what the fuck did they Democrats voted for Russ Vogt. How does he say his name? Vogt.
Vote. I think vote.
I think it's pronounced fuckhead. I think that's the pronunciation. It's a weird. It's some sort of weird thing. This is
Democrats
point.
Save us.
Yeah, about the political parties.
We need a solidarity movement like we have not seen in many decades.
Let's go partyless. Let's party without the parties. I can't with these parties.
To the degree that Democrats can slow their roll, amen. To the degree they capitulate, replace them. And beyond that, we need a bigger movement than partisan politics.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
And
who's your pick, Greg? Who's your pick for the Super Bowl?
I'm not picking against Mahomes. Come on. Kansas City's going to win.
Kansas City's going to win. All right.
Kansas City's going to win.
That's Taylor Swift's boyfriend plays for them, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
That's the guy. That's the guy with the power tools. He's about 10 years away from it.
That much I do know.
He resents his kids, but he loves them, but he kind of resents them. And he definitely doesn't want some elderly woman moving in and having to take care of her, having his wife. Wife is supposed to take care of him, not her. This is the guy. We got to get to this guy. I'm telling you, there's a lot of these guys, and these are the guys. I
think Taylor can get to him specifically. I will say I love Saquon, and the Eagles won't go to the White House if they win, and the Chiefs will. So, if that affects your rooting preferences, know that.
Well, you know what? Here's what I think.
What do you think?
Despite freaking out everybody in the comments, despite that, no one trying to freak you out. We're just trying to say Okay. At what point does this stop being a meme and we actually start talking about this as a subject?
Mhm.
That is one of the ways that we're going to get through this.